All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Story Studio podcast. It was like reflexes on that because Sean had been talking about something before. And then he's like, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we should record. And like, he hit the record. And I'm like, oh, I got to get over and hit mine. So, yeah. So it's,
But right,
I'm so flustered.
It seemed like a good segue, didn't it?
Well, right. But you didn't then pause and say, okay, well, let's begin. That's a good segue. It's like, okay, we're going to segue. Go.
Well, I know you've got like 38,000 words to write at the end of today. So.
No, I pushing us out of the plane, not even asking if the parachute's on.
How's that parachute fit? Okay, go. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. So anyway, today we want to talk about mastery and the 10,000 hours. And I want to talk a little bit more concrete about it because I think that this concept gets a lot of lip service. It gets a lot of, like, okay, so we understand from Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours toward mastery. We've heard about I don't remember the guy's name, the sushi guy that did the whole thing about like mastery and sushi. And I remember the thing, I'm butchering it, but it's not something we're like, yeah.
Sushi is the name of that.
There you go. So, a lot of people like, okay, well, so we're gonna, I understand mastery. I understand the idea to put in the hours, but I've done this calculation a few times and it depends on what hours you get to count. So I definitely have 10,000 hours in terms of writing. I don't know that I have 10,000 hours in terms of fiction writing using the process that we have. By my calculation, it's going to take me about a year to get 1,000 hours. I don't know if you've figured that out. So I haven't been doing writing the way that we've been doing in fiction using our process for 10 years. But I think that we're getting to the point, at least for me, where it's like, okay, I can begin to appreciate some of the fruits of beginning to see like what's different now as I'm a little more quote unquote masterful than when I was before, if that makes any sense as an intro.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I think about, I love the 10,000 hours as an idea, but I think it requires a little more digging in and a little more exploration than a lot of people usually give it. So what I mean by that is, it's not enough to like punch a clock. I'm working 10 hours, right? And then you punch out. No, I think your 10,000 hours has to be really intentional. And like you just said, Johnny, yeah, I have 10,000 hours writing, but do I have 10,000 hours writing with this process? Well, no. But 10,000 hours really steeped in story for sure. I think in some ways I can even count the hours I watch every single night. I'm watching story. Like I'm watching movies, but I'm actually absorbing them as a storyteller these days. I think they become a part of the fabric of what I do. I'll notice that I'll watch something and then little tidbits of this or that will make it into whatever I'm writing at the time. But I'm super intentional in the things that I write as far as learning process goes. Same with the way I outline. So, right now I've got a whole I've written a lot of stuff this year that isn't going to see the light of day for a while. There were a lot of standalones, but every single one I did, there was something new that I wanted to learn. Okay, I've never written in this tense, or I've never written from a POV of this kind of person, or I've never told this style of story before, or this narrative in this time frame. Johnny and I are writing a trilogy right now, and we're on such an accelerated pace that we needed a new outline for a book that the second one wasn't quite done. And there was two tricks here. First, I didn't really know what the story should be, but I wanted some kind of cool structure that we'd never really written to before. And I used it as an opportunity. The structure that we have basically bought us a little bit of time, because it was kind of like a reverse chronology thing. So the ending of the book could actually catch up in a weird way. And then it kind of framed out the rest of the way that we could tell the story. And it really was as simple as, hey, I've got this rush. I have to get this outline turned really fast. And we've never told a story in this way. Why not put those two things together? I think that if you look at the last 6 years of Sterling and Stone and the different kinds of stories that we've told, it's been very different with the way Johnny and I have approached it compared to the way that Dave and I have approached it. So Dave and I have pretty much stayed in our side of the pool. Our stories circle the same sort of themes. And we are actually talking about this earlier in the year, that I do think that Dave needs to travel a little more or get out a little more, because we are starting to see the same kind of, it's tropey for sure, like CI has its tropes, but the same kind of professions, the same kind of naming conventions, same kind of personality types, same kind of locations. And it makes sense. You know, Dave lives in Redacted, and most of what he sees from the world is what he's getting from the news or from television. And he's not as interested in experimentation. I actually want to ask you, Dave, I mean, I know this answer, but publicly, like, what is it that keeps you away from trying to tell a lot of different kinds of stories?
I don't know. I like to write what I like to write. I feel like I am well, yeah, I feel like I'm trying to write this perfect story, and each time I get a little bit closer, exploring different themes and similar themes, but in slightly different, I guess not so different ways now.
Well, I think that the way I would answer that question for Dave is that
why not?
Yes, I prefer your answer for me. Go ahead.
Well, it's where
we should just have a puppet where you talk to me.
Well, it's because
what
we've
do you
had
think,
this.
Dave?
Can you please make a Dave puppet for him, Dave?
Like the Gary puppet.
We've had this conversation many times where it's like I think Dave has a little bit of fear, intimidation, hesitation to write something that he doesn't know, or a kind of character that he doesn't have experience with. When I think that it's pointing the camera. It's you kind of decide what angle this is. And being able to do that, I think, opens a lot of storytelling doors. And so we've really, really stretched those muscles, maybe even too much at Realm and Sands by just...
There are different stories I'd like to tell, but I feel like it would make my writing process even longer. And as we discussed in the last episode, that really isn't a scenario that we want to go down again. So I would like to write wildly different things, but I don't think it would be very fast. And I would need the research and all these other things.
Okay, so let's talk about that for like in a more general sense, because I think, like, I totally hear you. You have to find that spot between, okay, this is commercially viable and is going to make me money, and this is going to really like feed me artistically. And then a third thing is, this is going to help me grow. This is going to stretch me as a storyteller. This is going to give me something that I didn't have in my tool set before. And I think you kind of, and this is not the way that Johnny and I did it at all, but I think it's the way we would do it, knowing what we know now if we were starting tomorrow. And that's kind of in order. So first we would pick our genre, we would get really dialed in on it. This is how many books it's going to take us to be profitable. We'd have an earned audience, and then we'd start expanding from there. Okay, now we want to tell this kind of story, and so on.
See, I would like to write a big, sprawling Game of Thrones sort of fantasy book, but I don't think that I'm capable of pulling it off yet.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I think there's so many moving parts, and we don't have the rhythm there. But I do absolutely think you can, and I think you have the character.
And there's a couple ideas I've told you about that I'd like to do, but I just don't feel we're in a place to write that yet, or it's not commercially viable. So there's a lot of different factors.
You feel to me a little bit like that Ira Glass video about the gap between taste and what you're producing. It seems to me is especially large for you. Like you feel like it feels to me like that is an especially poignant. Does everybody know what I'm talking about?
No, I absolutely agree.
You produce the kind of art that you have taste for a particular art, and then just look at Ira Glass creativity or something like on YouTube, and there's just this little video, and he talks about how anybody who gets into a creative art, and usually he's talking about beginners, although Dave's been doing this for a long time, I think it still applies. You get into an art because you have a taste, you have good taste in that art, like what is really good. So we did that episode on The Haunting of Hill House, and so that would be like, wow, that's really good, that's a really good story. And then your ability to tell the story in this case is not as good as your taste, and so there's a gap. And he talks all about this, and I feel like Sean and I, to some degree, just kind of like wave our hands at the gap. We'll get there eventually. I feel like Dave's kind of mayor of the gap. Like I feel like you're living there all the time.
I think, can we call him mayor of the Gap? I kind of dig that.
I tried that at the Gap store and they kicked me out.
I actually see that. I like this. So like, there's this big chasm here, and Dave will stand on the edge and look into the abyss and think, there's no way.
These are all terms I like revolving around Dave. The edge, the abyss.
I look into the abyss every day I wake up.
You and I think we'll see that, and what we'll do is we'll just turn around, run far enough to get a head start, and just run and jump and figure.
Yeah, I don't run or jump.
Yeah, but I do think that there's truth to that, and I think it's different. So
well, it's for me, it's a case of glass half empty, glass half full. It really does speak to pessimism versus optimism. So the reason that I wanted to do this topic is because for me, I'm noticing how far I've come. Now, I'm a little arrogant, so I thought I was pretty cool at the beginning, but like I'm appreciating how I've gotten better, and it's nice to be able to say like I've improved. I think that Dave is noticing how much he's yet to go, right? Like I don't think you're necessarily noting how far you've come.
Well, I think, and I'm not going to name book series because we don't want also bots screwed up, but the police series we did, I think that was different from what we normally do, and I enjoyed that rather much.
Yeah, it was different, and it is really good, except that last one that goes straight into hell, like making me like live through some of that crap with your baggage or whatever. So
yeah, I remember when Sean was editing that, he was like, yeah, man, Dave made me go into some places I don't want to go, and I have to because I have to edit it.
It was the darkest places Dave's ever asked me to go.
And that's Dave dark.
That's Dave, yeah. So no, I totally hear what Johnny's saying though about confidence in writing, and it's just you get to a point where okay, this is the way it works. So I started writing every day in May of this year, and it's kind of funny because I really hadn't written drafts in a couple of years. I'd been producing everybody else's stuff, outlining, editing, polishing, but not actually writing drafts. And there was a part before I started where I thought, I wonder if I can do this anymore. Maybe I've lost it. Maybe I can't sit down and write like I used to. And quite the opposite was true. I had kind of a slow start in May because I was writing nonfiction, and I was going to say true nonfiction, but I guess all nonfiction is true, but personal nonfiction. And it just took a long time. But my goal was to be done with that project and ready to write fiction on June 1st. And I was, and I really shocked the hell out of myself by the fact that it was actually fluid and easy, and I was having a good time with it. So I really liked being able to kind of come back from being cold and knowing that it was something I could do. But I knew that the most important thing was to not unplug from that. And, Johnny will tell you, we've been traveling and I've still had to get my words in because it is a habit for me. And, I need to do it every day. So I have, and it's gotten easier and easier. Now, here's the important part. It's actually never easy to start for me. Like Johnny says that he starts right in the morning. He's got his coffee. As long as that's all going well, that's the most productive part of his day. Mine comes an hour and a half into it. 8 o'clock in the morning, the children are gone. Cindy's gone to yoga and the house is really quiet. That's my best hour. I love that hour. And
so key to all you people that aren't married or with family yet, if you want to be a successful writer, don't have either.
That's right. Exactly what
that is the point. That's going to be the title of this episode.
Other people are baggage.
You guys have heard that expression, that writing expression, murder your darlings? It's not what it means.
Dave has a basement for that. But yeah, I think that now the thing that I'm writing, it's kind of interesting because my beats are coming from Dave, and it doesn't really matter if I have, like there was a part in the second book in this trilogy that I was writing a couple weeks ago, and through no fault of Dave's at all, I just started ignoring the beats.
Are you sure you don't want to blame me a little?
No, it was not Dave's fault at all. I just started ignoring the beats because it felt like, oh no, this is where it should go. And then I kind of wrote myself into a corner, and I didn't get stressed about it at all. I was like, okay, well, this clearly needs a few chapters to bridge this and this. And as I'm going through the second book, I'm getting towards the end, and more and more and more notes are piling up. Like, okay, I'm going to have to fix this. Now I'm going to have to fix this. Now I'm going to have to fix this. And interestingly, this is actually serious. It sounds like I'm busting on Dave, and I'm not at all. But as I got to the end, I thought, this is what Dave feels like. Like, this is because like I'm towards the end of the second book, and I see how much stuff could be falling apart in what I've written before if I were
seen that Dave simulator on Kickstarter, and shows you exactly what it's like to be.
I'd fund the shit out of
that. Definitely.
But like I could feel like if I was in Dave's skin right now, I would be feeling a lot of anxiety. I would be feeling like I need to go back.
It would be very baggy in there.
You know, like all these comments, I would want to go address them now, you know, in the first book instead of starting on the third book. And that would be the hugest mistake I could make right now. So I went ahead and, like, again, there's probably 400 comments that I've left for myself so far. There's a lot, because there's a lot of cleanup that I need to do to make things agree.
That's
that
too
I
much chaos for me.
Right. So, well, it's not one book. This is 3 books. I will have written.
I think I would want to jump off a bridge.
I will have written the end of book 3 before I go back to book 1. And so I'm actually right now, I'm just feeling, instead of feeling separated and like nervous where I would have before, you know, to Johnny's point, all of the time, all of the practice, writing every day since May 1st, and it's the end of the year right now, I'm lubed. You know, it's like Dave last episode. And so
can we talk about lube in every episode?
I think it's a new trope. So what I'm really finding is just that there's a confidence there that, look, these problems are mounting up, but they're actually not really problems. They're just things to address. And there's always a trade-off. I think, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're going through something, you're worried that, like, this isn't going to agree, this isn't going to agree, so I have to go back and make it agree. Where I'm writing with the knowledge that if I stray from the beats, it's for a reason. Other things are going to happen in the story, and I can make them agree later.
Okay, here is how my head works, and welcome to my nightmare. Being OCD, I need shit squared away. If it's not squared away, there's a part of my brain just thinking about it.
Johnny's a little like that too.
Non-fucking stop. Non-stop. And I can't get away from it. I cannot. No, it's madness. To hear that you have 3 books of notes, it's making me so angry.
I'm not like this. No, I'm nothing like this. I know what you were saying, but nothing like this.
If I had 3 books worth of notes, I don't think I could sleep again.
Yeah, I think that the some of the secret is in Sean just said the word problems, like the problems mounting up, and I think it's your definition, your understanding of what is and what isn't a problem. So, if I could be a little philosophical for a second, to a certain degree, art is kind of art. Like it just is what it is. And there can be this perception that there is a right and a wrong way for your story to look or sound or flow or whatever. And you tell that to a bunch of different authors, and they're going to interpret them totally differently. Like, imagine how Hunter S. Thompson versus Stephen King would address what a book should be. Like, that's that's absurd. And so to a certain degree, and there are limitations here, obviously, what you've produced in the end through the path that you've done it that's the art. And nobody can tell you, including you, that it's right or wrong, or you took a wrong turn. It just is what it is. And so I think that, like, let's say, I know that this isn't necessarily true of you all the time, Sean, but I'm imagining there's some degree of this. If you're going through and you notice something needs to pivot, and so you start to go in that direction, you leave notes, that's only a problem if it's a problem, if that makes any sense. So if that's just part of your process, and you do it every time. I don't allow it to
be a problem. I will not permit it to become a problem. It's part of the story. And as long as I know that the first draft is just getting the story out so I understand it and can tell it better the second
But if
time.
you're used to it and you go back, then that's just like, it's just part of your process. So what I tend to do, and again, this is just me, this is my version of the art, is that if I notice something that needs to be fixed in book 1, my tendency, and this isn't always the case, but my tendency, and I've learned this from 10,000 hours of working, is I'm not going to go back and fix it. I'm going to write something in the current book that addresses it and makes it okay in the first one.
Exactly. Because you're the storyteller and you control the camera. So you can always make the story agree. And there were several times. I mean, this is interesting because Dave's beats are pretty robust for this. So I'm in his head. I understand, where he was narratively in the story. I understand why, certain storytelling decisions were made. But, and Dave says this all the time. Well, the outline didn't work, right? Like the story went in a different direction. And of course, because how could you possibly ever outline a story in full? You can't, unless you're a really shitty storyteller, because...
Or that's your process. Like there are people who are like that.
Or you spend a lot of time outlining. Maybe.
Right. But if we have a general outline, then the kinds of outlines we produce really do allow for the breadth of character. So, the characters can kind of guide the story. We're not shoving them through a sequence of events. And if we're listening to the characters, then of course they're always going to stray from the outline. But that's not a problem, right? So the way I'll handle that is I'll write through, I'll understand the outline as guideposts, I get through it and then make the story agree. But if Dave comes across things where the outline stops working, then the story stops working. And so he'll go back and tweak. But Dave, have you ever, this is a serious question, I actually know the answer to this. Have you ever written straight through something without editing going back? Or is that just so ingrained as part of your process, you can't do it the other way?
Short stories only, I think, are the only things I've ever been able to write, because I knew that it was pretty self-contained and I couldn't fuck too much up. I think the deeper we go into each series, the more difficult it is for me.
That makes sense. That's one of the reasons I want to move to standalones for us is exactly that. Like,
and
because
maybe, well, I was gonna say maybe like I don't remember how much of Yesterday's Gone we went back and rewrote, but I would guess probably not a whole lot.
The first time?
The first book, yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I mean, mine comes from a certain stubbornness, honestly. I mean, it's part of my process and it works, so I can't dismiss it as stubborn. Like, I can't be pejorative about it. But it does come from, no, I don't want to go back and change that. Like, if they went to Chicago and they should have gone to LA, I mean, that's a terrible example, but, I'm not going to go back and change it so they went to LA. I'm just going to say, well, I need to have a reason why they went to Chicago, because I just don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I'll make it work some other way.
Yeah, and I don't know this for sure, but I think I actually learned that from you, Johnny. I think that I would have been more inclined to do it the Dave way and go and make it agree. But because it's not just that you do it that way, it's that it's worked for us every single time. It's not like it doesn't work.
Well, it's a Stephen King metaphor of the story already exists and you're there to excavate it.
Right. So we always find what is the logical way to make this problem that we have given to ourselves work? And I don't know how many story meetings we've had. I mean, I remember the ones at the end of Colonization were really amazing, where we were trying to figure out some very
well, you get yourself into a box. Like, that's actually one of the most interesting things to me is, I remember going to a writer's conference early on, and I had this problem where people would just stand around and I asked somebody about it and they said, well, drop a tree on somebody's head. Now, that was a simple way to basically say introduce some conflict, but that sort of like, oh yeah, introduce conflict is the same as our current technique was an epiphany to me of, oh, box them in. If you don't know what to do in the story, cut off all the options. And we've had some really fun times figuring out, okay, there's nothing that can be done here. They're fucked. Like, you get them to the point where they're fucked and there's nothing can happen. That's when some real magic happens, specifically because they're boxed in my story.
I have a little Dave story that was really great. It was an example of Dave.
I'll go gather the family if you're going to tell Dave.
It was for the third book in this trilogy. And it was kind of funny, because there was a certain element that needed to be in the book that was just completely missing, that needed to kind of be there to be the kind of book.
It was kind of the genre.
Right. So the
genre
genre
was thriller without peril.
Yeah, right. So we had great character moments. We had some great stuff. But I'm listening to Dave. It's 40-ish chapters, and he's got 17 of them. And it's a Sunday morning, and I'm listening to the whole story. Okay. And I'm like, but where is the thing that's supposed to be in the story? Well, that's why we're on the phone. Let's talk about it. So, okay, we figure it out, and Dave's a little frustrated. So we've got a lot of these elements, but he doesn't know quite how they're going to piece together. And I'm just thinking, I don't say this, but I'm thinking, you spend enough time with it, it's gonna come together, because it always does. That's how story works. But I kind of can't tell Dave that. It really needs to be his revelation. So I'm just listening, and I know that we have enough elements there. So I say, just get what you can done, and we'll talk tomorrow. And then and I know Dave well enough at this point. I know kind of what's going to happen. And sure enough, the next day I get an outline, and it's kind of giddy. You know, I can read it. Like, there's a lot of stuff here, and he's happy. And I even get this thing, because his big pushback was, I don't know how to bring these stories together. I don't know how to bring the character stuff together with the stuff that you're asking me to put in there. I don't quite know how to do that. And then I get the outline in there, and there's actually a parenthetical around chapter 30 that says, I'm threading these storylines together like a motherfucker, right? And it's like he had to feel it, and it had to come together. But it's not natural. That's not naturally the way that Dave tells stories. But that's what the 10,000 hours is all about. 10,000 hours is not learning to do the same thing over and over and over and over. It's learning to do variations of it. So
learning to do with fluidity and confidence, I would say. Actually, so this is a question I was wondering about. This is, how do you guys feel that this pursuit of mastery, or your journey down the continuum of mastery, has influenced your voice, like your writing voice, if at all?
For me, a ton. It's made me really chancy. Also, like, I'm willing to take a lot of narrative risks now, a lot of risks in voice. I think one of the things that's really helped me is working with so many other authors and having to slip into their voice, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm working with 5 different authors and I need to put a little bit here, a little bit there, then I need to be very comfortable in a lot of different styles.
Yeah, that's a unique skill.
It's a lot of different voices. And so it's really funny. Like, I'll write, like, I wrote a passage today that I thought, this is kind of how Johnny would handle this, even though it was in a CI book. And so I try to tend to write like Dave, or write like maybe a more colorful version of Dave, but it's very much, there's a CI style, and I know what that's supposed to be, and I adhere to it. But there was a paragraph where someone was telling kind of a rambly little aside story, and I felt like the lilt of your voice in what I was writing there. And I like that. I like that working with all these other authors. Working with Bonnie has been really great for me, because she's always pushing character. She's always pushing character arc. And so she's taught me to get there faster. Like, I think that naturally my instincts usually go towards character. I get there. Same with Dave, same with you. We're all very character driven. But I think that Bonnie has forced the company to put character like right in front in a way that we thought we were doing it, but now it's like, well, okay, here's how it's actually done. And even on like the outline that I have right now that I'm writing to, Dave has some really great character beats in there, but the outline ran through Bonnie's filter, and there were several moments that are like, okay, this would be great if you did this, or this person would be thinking this at this moment. And having, being able to respond to that, I think is just, it makes my work a lot better. So I think that the 10,000 hours has absolutely influenced my work, the quality, the speed, and the amount of chances that I'm willing to take. But I have to qualify that and say that that's only because I've been really intentional about not just doing the work, but doing as many different kinds of work as I can.
What about you with voice, Dave?
I don't even know. Voice is one of those things that I tend not to think about. If I do, then I just hate it. So yeah.
Well, my favorite thing on voice is something a story that Sean told a while ago, and we've repeated a few times, by singer Hank Ketchum, who said that I found my voice, and I'm paraphrasing, it's like telephone game, but basically found my voice when I stopped trying to sound like Van Morrison. And I think that's kind of something that's an epiphany for a lot of people, is pretty much all artists will start with imitation. If you're an illustrator and you're new, you'll try to copy stuff that you like. You'll copy styles that you like. I remember trying to write like Stephen King, like to the point where he has these little aside thoughts, and he'll put them in parentheses, and they'll be italicized in lowercase. And I was like, oh, how did he do that? Did he indent it? And I would mimic Stephen King in my early stuff that never got published. And then you do it for a while, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm deviating, but that's because that's you. Like that's your own voice coming through. And I think that one of the most profound things that I have noticed over the past 2 books specifically. So I think, help me with the chronology here, Sean, but I had that really shitty period. And then I think I wrote the 4th book in our 1 series, that the reboot. I think that one, and then the new one in my vampire series, right? Like that was there something in between there or no?
No, that seems about right.
Okay. And I remember feeling that 1 book before I wrote the vampire book was definitely good, but there were moments where I got stuck a little bit because I was coming out of my lull, but it was good. It was fluid. And then when I hit this last one, I was just like, fuck. And you haven't read it, but it felt like just fluid. Now I ran into a jam, like a story jam.
Oh yeah.
But as far as that other than that, the narrative pacing was just so fluid. And I was making stylistic decisions in terms of like, they were voice decisions. They were like, how does somebody say something? How do I describe something? And rather than questioning them, I just wrote it. And I was aware, it was a weird meta thing where I was like, okay, that's an interesting way to phrase that. And I like it, and I'm not going to second guess it. Deciding not to go into rambling passages like I used to, just really little things. The one that I'm writing now, and the whole trilogy that Sean was talking about, it's really hard to describe exactly what some of these decisions are. And this is a poor one, but I think that it's maybe an example of the sort of thing I'm talking about. I just had a little disagreement. I like banter and arguments, and I have 2 people, and they're in basically just an intimate situation. It's just the 2 of them, and they're kind of like, they have their guard down and they're talking to each other, and they're kind of taunting each other. And one of them said, who's done more? Who's done more? Who's done a better job of this particular thing? And the other person says me, and then the first person says no, me, and the first person says me again. And so that's such a stupid little thing. But I thought about that decision to have the first person's like take the ball back, right? So, well, no, they both had their say. They both said, no, I did it. No, I did it. But I felt like, no, the other guy's going to say it again because he's an asshole. And listening to those decisions where it's like, no, he has to have the last word in this, even if it's me, and dialogue, it looks a little weird. I've been listening to a lot more of that. I've been a little more liberal with my metaphor choices, but not to the extent that it's flowery. There's just been a smoothness with the communication in these last 2 books. It's actually been 4 books, I guess. Last 2 projects that wasn't there before. And it just comes from, you know what? That's different. And I'm going to roll with it.
Yeah. I think that the confidence that you get after a while it's so earned. So I touched on this earlier, but it's true. It's just, I'm writing, and there are things that I'm like, I'm not really sure about that. But what I am sure about is that I felt that I'm not sure about that so many times before and been wrong. Because when I come back, it's so much better than I expected. And so I could have spent time tweaking it and, second guessing myself and coming back, and it would have been 90% the same. Like it's so much wasted time, where if I just let it go, continue down the page, write, and, because sometimes I'll think, man, who do I think I am trying to write in this voice? Or this isn't going to work or whatever. There was something that I wrote recently that had to be like a lot of, it was very sci-fi, and it had a lot of tense changes. Like it was 3rd person, and then it went into 1st person present because that's what the story I felt like it called for. I just got there and I was surprised and like, okay, now it needs to be this totally different tense. And that's the kind of thing I used to second guess a lot. Like, is a reader going to be okay with that kind of change?
That who do I think I am is a big thing. I totally relate to that.
Yeah. But I think you do it enough and you're like, I know who I am. I'm Sean Platt. Like whether that means, right. Whether that
motherfucking Platt.
Whether that means anything to the average reader or not, it means something to me. It means, look, I've probably written around 10 million words at this point.
Readers can tell when you're hesitant. They can tell when you're second guessing something.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And as the primary editor, in the company for a long time, I can absolutely say that. All 3 of us, I know when our copy is tentative, right? I mean, there's books that all 3 of us have done. You can look at the rough drafts and that we were having a harder time. That we were not. When
I'm producing good copy, I do feel, and this is laughable, honestly, but there is a swagger. There is like,
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm going to go write my shit. Like if I'm writing well, that's what I feel.
And your copy reads like swagger when it's like that, and mine's the same way. There's a couple of books that I've written this year that are just slightly different because either my outline was really clean or I just really knew the story or whatever. And they feel different. They're like, okay, that's a balls out, like,
just little things like breaking the fourth wall. You say something where you're referring to a second person you know, the kind of thing, like you refer to something, you say, well, it's like when this, and you're like, if technically that sentence in isolation, you're really talking to the reader. And so it doesn't technically fit, but it's just like, yeah, fuck that. I'm going to do that. That's how I'm thinking right now. Those sorts of decisions, I think you let yourself do. I mean, earned. Hopefully I'm doing it in a way that's shitty.
Right.
Yeah.
The rough draft is not the time to worry about whether or not you should be adopting that voice or anything. The rough draft is get out of your own way, tell the story, and then ask yourself the critical questions when you're going back through it, because it really should just be about letting your natural voice.
But dude, what's weird for me is that, you know, the story I was talking about that I wrote before the current trilogy, I did that entirely on my own, like I did at the beginning. So that meant that I got to do the second draft, and I never did the second draft. And holy shit, was that a light edit. I mean, I couldn't believe how smooth most of that read. It's like, and I mean, I'm judging myself. So of course I'm going to judge myself favorably given who I am, but I don't think that it was diluted. I think that it was like, no, this is good copy. And it came from embracing that from the beginning.
I haven't read it. I'm sure it was. Like what I've seen lately it's so smooth. And I know that's true for me too. I had one book that I wrote this year that I thought was a total mess. And when I got through it, I had scheduled like a pretty chunky amount of time to go through it a second time. And I didn't need it. Like I went through it and I was like, wow, I was really hating myself for no reason. This is really fine. So, but again, that's getting out of your way in the first draft and letting your first draft, if it does suck, fine. That's what the second draft is for. But if you spend your whole first draft thinking this sucks, I should change this, I should change that, you're never, ever going to get in flow. And flow is when writing is the most fun. It's when the story is usually the best too. And you can't get that if you're constantly second guessing yourself. It's literally impossible.
I think we should give the final word on this show to Dave.
Lube.
There you go. All right, that's good to know.
Oh, that was good. It is always good to have Dave. You are a pillar of these conversations.
I was more active in the last one, I think.
It's like he got lubed up.
I did have some
slow decline. Now he's clenched again. He's dried out.
I did have something to say, but then you guys kind of changed the path.
No, we want to hear. What were you going to say?
Well, when you're talking about me spending time with the story, that I needed to spend time with the story to get it for the outline.
Yeah,
that is that's always the case. And what it, I was explaining it to somebody else, and I said it's kind of like. I am creating a puzzle, but I need to see the puzzle pieces where you don't really care. You'll just start assembling the puzzle before you see all the pieces.
That's a very good metaphor, actually.
Yeah. And I need to actually physically, like every outline I do, it's not on computer. I write it all down. I have to visually see what I'm doing and write it sometimes a few times before I'll type it out. I need to see how the pieces fit. Otherwise, I can't do the whole damn thing. So
yeah, and there might be a lot of writers who that is their process. Like there's really there's no really right or wrong to the process. It's figuring out what works for you. Then I think the big thing missing from your process, Dave, is actually not a right or a wrong, because I think there are things that like that's how I write outlines. That's what's good. I think with you, it's a matter of picking up the things that work, getting rid of the things that don't, and experimenting more. I think you tend to hang on to things that don't work. Like there's something that doesn't serve you, but it's comfortable to maybe go back to that place because it's what you're familiar with. So I think true growth, if we're talking in terms of 10,000 hours and what makes you, in pursuit of mastery, you have to be absolutely sticking to the things that work, and then measuring, okay, well, that clearly didn't work for me. I'm not going to do that again. And then be very hyper aware of what is and isn't working, adding, subtracting. But also a big thing that's missing, I think, from your overall process is the experimentation. So it's like, okay, I haven't tried to write an outline this way, or I haven't tried to write a story this way. Let me figure it out. Let me see if I can do that. And you're in a unique position that a lot of people probably are not, where you do have this huge safety net. You have me, you have Johnny, you have the company, but especially you have me. Like, I am your collaborator. So we can figure out ways to do it, especially because I'm malleable. Like, whatever's going to work for you will work for me, but you should be trying things like, I don't know if that'll work for me, but for this project, let's do it that way.
Well, I was going to say, I do think one thing that we'll do going forward is, because I do keep going back and fixing shit, I think next time, whatever cushion we can afford into the project, I will just say, I'm going to write this straight through and not go back and edit once. And I know that usually I don't edit it before I give it to you, like a second pass through, except the ones I do while I'm fucking writing it. So if I just finish the whole thing first and then know that I'm going to go back and do one more look at it, it might help matters. So
yes, absolutely. I 1,000% think that that's the way you should do it. That's exactly how I'm doing what we're doing now. I'll write it straight through. I'm not looking. I'm going to go through the whole thing again, and then I'll hand it to you and say, okay, now go in, like rip it apart as much as you want. But here's my 2 passes. Here's what I think the story should feel like. And if you do that, I think we're in a much, much better shape for you to actually scale your ideas, which, I mean, Dave is as good as any idea person I've ever met. It's just, how do you scale your ideas so that you're not trapped in your own head?
All right. Well, let's bail at this point. This was fun. And thanks to everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Adios.
Loobity loob.